Harleys, drugs, girls, and violence. Life in one of Virginia's most feared biker gangs.
If you weren't a renegade, you weren't nothing. I was like untouchable. I was above everybody and everything.
Keith "Tank" Watson was a high school sophomore when he got his first taste of being in a biker gang.
They didn't care. And they were partying and having a good time, and they stayed out. They had girls hanging around them. I just felt like they had a freedom. They just didn't care. And I said, you know, I like that.
But for Tank, it was more than that. Like them, he saw himself as an outcast, someone who needed a place to belong.
Because the kids didn't really accept me. I was always a fat, ugly kid. Yeah, that's the way I perceived myself. They used to like to call me lumpy. So, you know, those aren't really words of acceptance. You know, you try to play it off, but it hurt.
Tank was raised in the church and even asked Jesus to come into his life at 15. But wanting friendship, he fell in with the party crowd. Then he met the Renegades and a place to belong.
You needed a helping hand, you pick up a phone, they were there. You know, and that's what it was about. It was a brotherhood.
By the time Tank was 21, he was working as a bouncer and selling and using drugs. It was then he became an official member of the Renegades. Now his intimidating size was an advantage.
When it was battle time, it was battle time. I mean, we ran this area, this was our area, and we didn't want other clubs coming in and stuff like that.
Tank would spend the coming years climbing the ranks of the Renegades, where guns, violence, and drug dealing earned him 4 years behind bars. But that changed nothing. In fact, his drug use escalated to meth, which fueled his ego and violent outbursts.
Never got sober. I stayed high. I'd go out sometimes just to look for a fight. You know, almost begging people to hit me just so we could, you know, I could take my frustration out. I felt like I had self-respect because, I mean, my self-esteem was big.
Eventually, Tank married and had a son. But when they divorced after 4 years, Tank finally began to see how far his life had veered off course.
You know, I wasn't seeing my son like I wanted to because my ex, he's living with her dad. I was really tired of it. I was trying to get away from the drugs. And so I started doing more cocaine, thinking I could get away from the meth. So I was not happy with myself at all. And just, because everything I loved was going down the tubes.
Then, in 1999, Tank, along with 30 of his renegade brothers, was indicted on meth distribution and weapons charges.
Like everything was just, I mean, I didn't have anything left.
Tank was in jail awaiting trial when a prison chaplain brought him a Bible. With nothing to lose, he started reading.
And I reached rock bottom. I'm done. I didn't know what else to do. And I'm saying, God, you know, I know you're real, and I know I've been such an idiot. So I sat there and said, you know, Lord, you never turned your back on me. I said, I know you're right here for me. I said, I'm yours, I'm done. And that's all I had to do was turn, trust in him. And that's what I did. And if it was the rest of my life in prison, I said, okay, God, use me here, you know. I surrender all to you.
Tank pled guilty to the charges and, facing life in prison, threw himself on the mercy of the court.
I said, I'm sure you hear it all the time, but the Lord's changed my life. I said, this ain't a Jesus thing to get out of jail or anything, but he's just totally changed me, and I've learned my lesson.
The judge reduced the sentence to 16 years, time Tank used to study the Bible and draw close to God. His anger, hurt, and ego slipped away as he saw himself and others through God's eyes.
He just made me bubble. I mean, I knew I was accepted. I knew I was loved by him. I started looking from a Christian perspective. I started seeing people as lost. Well, I'd sit there and talk to them about the Lord, and I just continued telling people about Christ.
Tank walked out of prison in 2012 with a renewed mind and spirit. He quickly found a good church where he met his wife, Caroline.
I am totally blessed. I've got a super wife that loves me, encourages me, prays for me. God's just so good.
Now this former renegade has found a new brother and sisterhood, the Faith Riders, a group of Christian bikers who tell the outcasts of this world about a loving God.
I mean, when you get it, you get it. And now I know I have it. And I can't turn back. I mean, God's just awesome.